Now, with the introduction of the RTX 5060, 5060 Ti, and the RX 9060 XT, I think it's a great time to build yourself a budget-friendly gaming PC. Something around $1,000 to $1,500 is very doable these days with modern components. Now, what we're going to specifically do is partner up with MSI and build around, I think, probably one of the best GPUs for around that $500 mark in the brand new market, which is the 16GB version of the RTX 5060 Ti. We're specifically using the MSI Gaming OC version, which utilizes a dual 120mm Stormforce fans, which are very quiet. It has a metal backplate, very compact, and priced around the $550 mark. Now, that's certainly more expensive than both the standard 5060 and the RX 9060 XT, but we've been doing some testing. I'm actually in the middle of it right now, and based on our experience, most games are actually fastest on the 5060 Ti 16GB version, not to mention that it has better compute capabilities if you're going to be doing some CAD, 3D modeling, or video editing. Just gives you a little bit of edge up and versatility apart from the gaming standpoint. Now, our PC is going to be around that $1,500 mark. We want to thank MSI again so much for supplying most of the components. Without them, this video wouldn't be possible, and moreover, without you guys, we wouldn't get opportunities like this, so make sure you subscribe if you haven't done so already. But let's talk about the CPU that we're going to be running with the system. Now, you can certainly go AMD. I think they probably offer a little bit more optimization, especially for gaming, both on the low end and high end spectrum. If you're going to go for the best bang for the buck, certainly a great option is the 9600X or the 9700X for around that under $200 mark or just around the $300 mark. Very optimized for gaming and general computing, but I personally am a big fan of the older generation, 14th generation Intel chips, specifically the 14600K processor. Super versatile, excellent for gaming, excellent for general computing, and these days you can still get one brand new for the $200 mark on Amazon, and that's exactly what we're going to go with. Now, you can go with the Ultra series, which are certainly more modern, but I think, again, for the bang for the buck, if you're going for Intel, the 14th generation is definitely where it's at, especially for gaming. Now, since we're going with 14th generation Intel, we're going to need a motherboard that's fairly modern with all the latest connectivity. Thankfully, MSI has us equipped with the Pro Z790A Max Wi-Fi Pro series motherboard. This basically has most of the modern connectivity interfaces, not to mention some great overclocking features, including 16-phase dual rail power delivery, 80 amp smart power staging, as well as a dual 8-pin CPU connectors, so you can really maximize the amount of power utilization for some extreme RAM and CPU overclocks. Obviously, this supports dual channel DDR5 up to 7800 megatransfers per second, PCI Express 5.0, and you have 4 M.2 slots, so plenty of SSD connectivity options. At the back, you have a couple of USB 3.1s, 3 USB 3.2 Gen 2. You also have one USB Type-C that'll give you up to 20 gigabytes a second, a 2.5 gigabyte Ethernet connection, as well as built-in Wi-Fi 7 and Bluetooth 5.4. Now, being a premium motherboard, it is going to cost us a little bit in terms of price, around $250 new or around low $200 if you want to get one used on Amazon, but you are getting much more of the modern connectivity compared to the B series motherboards. But if you are on a tighter budget, I can certainly recommend a B760 board that will probably save you another $100. Now, we can save a little bit of money on the SSD since we don't need a tremendous amount of storage at the beginning and a lot of speed. So we're actually going to go with the MSI Spatium M.2 1 terabyte drive. This has read speeds up to 3.6 gigabytes and writes up to 3 gigabytes, which is definitely not that fast, but it only costs $75 for 1 terabyte, which is definitely not a bad deal. In terms of RAM, we're going to go with 32 gigabytes of DDR5 from G.Skill. It's their Trident Z5 RGB series. This is rated at 6,000 megahertz, and it's $95 for 32 gigabytes. In terms of the CPU cooler, we're going with the MSI Mag Core Liquid A13 240mm all-in-one cooling solution. This is pretty affordable at around $80. It has addressable RGB lights and has a white overall casing, which is going to match with our case and kind of build theme. Now, in terms of the power supply, we're going with MSI's newly released MAG A750GL power supply, 750 watts, 80 plus gold certified, comes with a 10-year warranty. It's also compatible with ATX 3.1 as well as PCI Express 5.1. That is going to improve the power extrusion and delivery both to the motherboard, CPU, and all your components. Specifically in PCI Express 5.1, it elongates the connectivity pins in the 16-pin connector, as well as shortens the sensing pins. So basically, if you don't have the connector in all the way, it's not going to short circuit and damage any of your components. So it gives you a little bit of a safety assurance. There's also the actual plug has a different color than black, so you know when it's connected properly or not. In terms of the modular connections at the back, you'll find a dedicated 12-volt 16-pin connector for all your modern NVIDIA GPUs. You're also going to see 4 8-pin connectors for PCI Express and your CPU, as well as 4 6-pin connectors for SATA and modular accessories. In terms of the case, we're going to go with a white MSI MPG Velox 300R high airflow case. This comes pre-installed with 2 160mm assignable RGB fans at the front. You also have a standard 120mm fan at the back. These have a dual bladed design, which will improve airflow and efficiency supposedly, but they are pretty quiet. I really do like the fact that on the back of the 160mm fans, there's actually 3 mode settings for your fans, so you have a manual override, something I haven't seen in a very long time, but definitely a welcome addition. The front of it also is modular, where you can fit multiple different radiators and fans, and it has actually a sliding capability, so you can slide your 160mm fans up and down. It also has a magnetically attaching dust filters, glass side panel. One of my favorite features about the case is that it has a removable PSU cover, which is in white, and a lot of PSUs don't come in white, so it's really nice to use pretty much any PSU you want and just cover it so it looks very uniform and white with the entire theme of your build, which definitely makes it really clean and very easy to build with. Lastly, you also have an adjustable GPU support arm, which is going to give you a little bit of horizontal stability when you're transporting the GPU, which is super important, especially if you have big, long GPUs that have no horizontal support, especially on the opposite side of the I/O shield. So that's definitely a very, very welcome addition to this case. And generally speaking, the build process went very smoothly. I pretty much made the entire system in under 45 minutes, start to finish. Now, in terms of the total cost itself, we priced everything through Amazon, and we came around $1,525, not including Windows or tax. Now, certainly there's lots of opportunities to save money depending upon what components you're going to get, but this is using pretty much all brand new components straight from Amazon. Now, moving on, let's talk about what this system can do in terms of gaming performance. Using 3D Mark's synthetic benchmarking suite, Steel Nomad, we're getting around 3,564 points. Times by Extreme, we're getting around 7,335 points. You can compare those scores with whatever systems you have. And I'm going to go over some of the few games that I've tested, and we'll go over more games, but I won't talk over it. But we're going to talk about the games in mostly quad HD resolution, but I'm going to throw up both the HD and 4K resolution on the same quality settings. So first up is going to be Spider-Man 2. Very high detail setting, DLSS set off, so no frame gen, no upscaling. At the Quad HD resolution, we're getting an average frame rate at the opening sequence of the game of about 138 frames per second, up to 150-ish frames per second, and 1% lows in the 70 mark. So definitely not bad, super playable, and looks great on the system. Now moving on, let's talk about Cyberpunk 2077's built-in synthetic benchmark. And for this game, we pretty much use the medium ray tracing preset and set the DLSS mode to balance in the transformer model. And within the Quad HD resolution, we got a score of about 73.42 average frames per second and a minimum rate of about 65.5. Within the game itself, at Quad HD resolution using the exact same detail settings, we got about 75 to 65 average frames per second. And I'll also throw up the 4K and HD resolution in terms of average and 1% lows. Moving on to Expedition 33, using the high preset with dynamic resolution turned off and frame gen off. At Quad HD resolution, we're getting a solid 63 frames per second, down to about 58 frames per second on the gameplay we've sampled. And we'll throw up the 4K and HD resolution. Warhammer 40K Space Marine with DLSS set off. We're getting an average frame rate of 68 frames per second and a low of about 66 frames per second based on our initial gameplay. And we're getting well over 100 frames per second on the HD resolution, but not so much on the 4K since this GPU is really not made for 4K resolution with relatively high detail settings. Now I'm going to stop talking and we're going to go through just a handful of other games just so you get a better idea in terms of what this system can do. Now in summary, I think for 1440p gaming, this system is more than adequate enough for most people's needs. And even for general day-to-day use applications, certainly very capable for video editing, 3D rendering, and anything in between. Now, if you're gonna certainly nitpick on some of the components that we've chosen, certainly the price point is at a little bit of a high premium, I will admit that, but this of course is a MSI sponsored build, so we have to use their products. I think the quality is exceptional though. Love the motherboard, I love the power supply, and the whole system really came together very nicely. And if you're going for a theme build, you really want to factor that into your price point. And I think, generally speaking, I'm very super impressed and happy with the overall results. And this is going to be pretty much our new gaming benchmarking rig. It's going to be excellent to have basically one platform. I've been specifically using the 14600K for all of our benchmarks, but it's nice to have a solid foundation with this system. Now, I really do want to thank MSI for giving us a huge opportunity in supplying these components. It's a pretty tough time in the PC gaming world and in general in consumer electronics with all these tariffs and everything like that. So it is very nice for them to support a small channel like this and give us all the opportunity to showcase their awesome products. But if you have any specific questions, let me know. Now, we are going to be testing out the new RX 9060 Ti as well as the standard RTX 5060 using this system, so we're going to have that video in the description down below once that becomes available. And if you haven't done so already, please make sure you liked and subscribe. That helps us out tremendously in the algorithm. And if you have any specific questions, let me know. Check out the description for everything we've talked about, and we'll see you later. Take care. Bye-bye.